Hi everyone, and welcome to our first virtual tea tasting. I'm Robin, and I'm the founder of the Fragrant Leaf Tea Boutique. I started the Fragrant Leaf to showcase the finest teas of Asia and also to help people discover the variety of tea traditions from tea cultures around the world. Today, we'll be brewing Dragonwell green tea. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the comments section, and I will address them at the end of our video. So Dragonwell, which is known as Longjing in Chinese, is one of the 10 famous teas of China. And its growing region is in Zhejiang province, primarily the Hangzhou area. Now, Dragonwell is known for 4 unique characteristics. The first is the color of the leaves. They are a beautiful jade green, and you can see them here. Beautiful jade green leaves. Another key unique is the aroma. It's fragrant and a little bit of vegetal. The taste is also quite unique. It's reminiscent of roasted chestnuts. So if you think of on a warm or a cold winter night, you're roasting chestnuts over an open fire, that would be the flavor profile. And last but not least is the shape of the leaves. They are very flat and shaped like a sword. So those are the 4 unique characteristics of Dragonwell. So we're going to go ahead and get started in brewing our tea today. We'll be using a covered ceramic cup, which is known as a gaiwan. We also have our decanter, which is a glass pitcher, and we'll be tasting with our small tasting cups. Okay, so the first step is that we're going to be heating up all of our tea implements. And it's important to do this to extract the best flavor of the tea. Because if you pour hot water into a cold vessel, the water temperature will drop too much and you won't get the optimal brew. So we're going to go ahead and heat up our gaiwan, our pitcher, and our cups. Okay, so our gaiwan today, this holds about 5 ounces of water, about 150 milliliters of water, and I'm going to be using about 2 teaspoons of Dragonwell tea. You can use more or less depending on the flavor you want to achieve. The method that we're using today is called gongfu brewing. It's the traditional Chinese style of brewing many types of green tea, many types of tea in general. And it really is using a small vessel, more leaf and less water. So your leaf to water ratio is much higher, and that enables you to, first of all, extract the best flavor, get the best taste for your cup of tea, and it also allows to re-steep the tea multiple times. Talk a little bit about the 2 main variables that affect the taste of your green tea, particularly Dragonwell tea. The first thing is water temperature, and the second is the steeping time. Water temperature is critically important to brewing and bringing out the best flavor of the leaves. You don't want to have boiling water for green tea. If water is too hot, the tea will become very bitter, and you won't be able to appreciate the subtle aroma of the Dragonwell tea. On the other hand, if your water is too cold, then you won't extract fully the best flavor from the leaves. So I recommend brewing at about 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you've already boiled your water, how do you cool it down? There's a couple of ways you can do that. One is you can, just as I've done, I pour the hot water into a pitcher and you can let it sit for a few minutes until the water has cooled down. If you don't want to wait, 3 or 4 minutes, then you can use 2 pitchers and pour the water back and forth to cool it down more quickly. And the third option is if you have a kettle, an electric kettle, you can heat the water to a very specific temperature. And that's what I've done today. I've used a kettle that has heated the water to 170 degrees. So our first step before we actually brew the tea is we're just going to rinse the leaves briefly. And this is to open them up and make sure that they're ready to release all of their flavor. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour that rinse water out completely. And you can definitely see that the leaves have opened up. It's very aromatic, and we're ready to brew our first cup. Okay, so I'm pouring in our 170 degree water. Now the other important variable that I mentioned before in terms of being able to brew a really good cup of tea is the steeping time. And we're going to go ahead and steep our tea for about a minute. I'm going to go ahead and use the timer so we're pretty accurate. When we're brewing more leaf with less water, we generally want to use a shorter steeping time, so I recommend 30 seconds to 1 minute for your first brew. If you let the brew sit too long, you will oversteep the tea and it will become very bitter. So we're going to go ahead and let that brew for about a minute. I also recommend for green teas, and particularly Dragonwell tea, to not cover your teapot. We're going to let it brew kind of open style. And this will make sure that the water is not too hot. So you really don't need really, really hot boiling water for Dragonwell tea. And I'm just going to move the leaves back and forth with the cover so they dance a bit in the water. And we've got our 1 minute brew ready to go. We'll pour those into our cup. And you can see the beautiful yellow-green color of the liquid. And that's your typical Dragonwell color. So the first thing I notice about the tea is the aroma. It's got some nice flowery notes to it. Some notes of roasted vegetables, so it's got that vegetal aroma. You think asparagus, spinach, very, very nice, very warm. And the taste, typical Dragonwell tea, one of its characteristic tastes is a roasted chestnut or nutty note to it, so we're definitely getting that flavor profile coming through. It's very savory. There's a little bit of sweetness as well to it. The body, I'll talk about the body. It's a strong-bodied tea. It's a typical, Dragonwell tends to be a more robust tea than many of the other Chinese green teas. So it's a nice introduction to green tea, to Chinese green teas in particular. It's got a robust flavor, nice strong body. And it's very approachable. So I think of it as sort of a gateway tea for many people that have not been used to drinking green tea or are just being introduced to it for the first time. So the nice thing about brewing this style, Gongfu style, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can re-steep the tea multiple times. Generally, I find Dragonwell tea will rebrew about 5 to 6 times with good flavor. And each subsequent brew will give you a slightly different nuance of the flavor and aroma. So we're going to go ahead and start our second brew. And for each subsequent steep, I recommend adding about 10 to 15 seconds to your brewing time. So we'll go ahead and start that. And we'll let that one go about 1 minute and 15 seconds or so. So as we're waiting for this to brew, I'd like to talk a little bit about the key factors that influence the quality and the taste of Dragonwell tea. There are 4 main factors that will influence Dragonwell and pretty much any green tea. The first is the location where the tea is grown. And as I mentioned earlier, Zhejiang province is the authentic growing region for Dragonwell. The second would be the picking time. So when is the tea picked? What part of the year? Usually it's a spring tea for these green teas in China. The third aspect would be the varietal of your tea, which is the actual specific type of tea plant. And there are specific varietals that are used to grow Dragonwell tea. And the fourth influencing factor would be the skill of the tea maker when they're processing the leaf after picking. Okay. So we'll go ahead and try our second brew. So generally, what I find when brewing Dragonwell with multiple steepings, the first brew tends to give you more of the aroma of the tea. So the strong, warm, vegetal aroma really comes through in the first brew. Your second brew will really highlight and showcase the flavor. So I would expect this brew to be a little bit stronger in taste. So I'm definitely getting much more of the nutty, robust flavor, a little bit sweetness, slightly more sweetness than the first brew. The aroma is still nice and warm, not quite as vibrant as the very first brew, but still a wonderful tea. So I'm going to go ahead and do one last brew and just talk a little bit about why the spring teas are considered the best teas for Dragonwell, and Chinese green tea in particular. We'll get this one going. And so this one will do about 1.5 minutes. We've added about 15 seconds or so. This is our third brew. Okay, so why are spring teas the best? Well, Dragonwell tea is only picked once a year in the springtime. And in China, the qualities of this tea that are really important are a light and sweet taste, a really vibrant aroma, and a lingering aftertaste. Those are the qualities that are most valued in any green tea, and in particular Dragonwell. And the tea plant for Dragonwell, during the course of the winter and during the cold weather, the plant is growing very slowly. It's absorbing lots of nutrients from the soil. It's storing sugar as energy for when it blossoms in the spring. So that winter weather, that cold weather, allows it to grow slowly and develop, all of those nutrients that will come out in the spring tea. And that's why when you pick the spring tea, it actually tastes the best. It's the most sweet. It's got the best aroma. It gives you all those complex nuances of flavor that are very desirable in the Dragon Well tea. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this one out. I think we're ready for our third brew. And lastly, I just wanted to mention as well, I spoke about the flat shape, the sword shape of the leaves, and this is something that is very unique to Dragon Well, and it's really a function of the craftsmanship from the tea maker. With any green tea, what basically happens after picking is that the oxidation of the leaf needs to be halted very quickly so that the leaf doesn't turn brown. If you think of an apple, once you cut it, it turns brown. And so that's what happens when the leaf is plucked and it begins to oxidize. So for green tea, you want to stop that pretty quickly. And the main step to do that is called the kill green, or the shaqing phase, where heat is applied to the leaf to kill the enzymes in the leaf that cause oxidation. And generally for Dragon Well, traditionally this high heat has been applied by stir-frying the leaf in hot woks by hand. Now with modern machinery and lower labor to produce tea, that is done in a machine. So the first processing to flatten the leaves is done in the machine to both stop the oxidation and flatten the leaves. Afterwards, the tea maker will then take those leaves and use special hand movements in a hot wok to flatten the leaves and develop that signature sword-shaped leaf. So let's try our third brew. So this is very delicious. It's really got all of the sweetness, the nuttiness, the savoriness. Just really good tea. So you can go ahead and continue to brew this tea probably another two or three times for a total of up to 6 infusions, and getting different nuances of the flavor. So I would like to open it up to questions. I'm going to go ahead and check to see if we have any questions in our comment section. Do we have any comments? Okay, no comments. If you have questions after I've finished the video and you'd like to post them again in the comment section, I'll go ahead and take a look and I'll respond to them after the video is over. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a little bit about Dragon Well and how to brew the Dragon Well tea. Stay tuned and join us next Tuesday when we'll be exploring the Japanese powdered green tea known as matcha. Thank you, everybody, and have a good afternoon.